Okay, so AI, right?
Hmm.
It's everywhere you turn these days. It seems like every headline, every tech conference, and even like your neighbor at the grocery store can't stop talking about it.
It really is incredible how AI has captured everyone's imagination. But amidst all the hype, it's easy to lose sight of the practical applications and the potential impact it can have in specific areas.
Exactly. And that's why we're here today, because so many of you have reached out wanting to explore AI's potential in higher education. So buckle up, because we're taking a deep dive into a fascinating study that sheds light on just that.
The 2024 ADCause AI Landscape Study, right?
That's the one. We'll be unpacking some of its key findings about how universities are and maybe aren't quite preparing for this AI wave.
From what I've seen so far, it really goes beyond those early conversations about, robots grading papers or automating tasks. This study digs deeper into how institutions can leverage data to really fundamentally change how they operate and serve students.
I'm intrigued already. So the study finds that 47% of higher ed leaders are actively evaluating their data practices to prepare for AI. Almost half. That's a pretty significant number.
Mhm.
What's your take on that?
It definitely suggests a shift happen across higher education. There's a growing recognition that AI isn't just a passing fad, it's here to stay. But there's also a realization dawning that their data needs to be in order before they can truly unlock AI's potential.
And speaking of data, the study talks about this concept of dark data. Could you break that down for us? I'll admit it's a new one for me. Why should I, as someone interested in higher education, care about this dark data?
So think about all the data universities collect: student admissions records, grades, enrollment data, even like library checkouts. Dark data is all this information that's just sitting there unused and unanalyzed. It's basically a missed opportunity, and it's a bigger problem than you might think. The study cites some pretty startling statistics. It's estimated that a whopping 66% of public sector organizations, and that includes a lot of universities, have at least half of their data in the dark. Just imagine the potential insights buried in all that untapped information.
So basically, all this potentially valuable data is just going to waste. What are the costs of ignoring this dark data then?
Well, think about it this way. What if universities could use this data to personalize learning experiences, identify students who might be at risk of dropping out, or even optimize resource allocation? Leaving all that data untapped means missing out on those opportunities to make a real difference.
It's like having a treasure chest but never bothering to open it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's where the concept of data maturity comes into play.
You're right. It's not just about how much data you have, it's about what you do with it. So how do we move from data graveyards to actually using this information for good?
Exactly. It's not about the quantity of data, but how effectively it's used to make things better.
Give us an example.
Well, think of it like this. A data-mature institution is one that uses data to deeply understand its students' needs and challenges, which ultimately leads to better support and outcomes for everyone.
The study points to Georgia State University as a success story in this area. They actually managed to raise their graduation rates by a significant margin. By how much was it again?
A full 8 percentage points.
Wow, 8 percentage points. That's huge. And they did this by using data to improve their academic advising program. That's incredible. But scaling that kind of transformation across higher education seems like a massive undertaking. What are some of the obstacles universities face in trying to achieve that level of data maturity?
You're absolutely right. Replicating that level of success across the board is a huge challenge, and many institutions do face some major hurdles. The key takeaway from Georgia State's example, though, is that their success wasn't just about implementing some shiny new technology.
It sounds like it was more about a fundamental shift in how they approach data.
Exactly. It was a cultural shift, a real commitment to becoming a truly data-driven institution. And that requires a change in mindset, not just new tools.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about the tech, it's about the culture.
Interesting. And that cultural shift is often the missing piece. Institutions can have mountains of data, but without the right infrastructure and the right mindset. It's like having a library full of books you never read.
A great analogy.
Yeah.
So speaking of infrastructure, the study mentions data architecture. What exactly does that mean in the context of higher ed and AI?
Well, think of it like this: data architecture is basically the blueprint for how a university organizes, stores, and accesses its data.
Like the foundation of their data house.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And just like with the real house, the architecture has a big impact on how functional and livable it is. Some universities are going all in on cloud-based systems, while others are building what are called data lakes. The choice of architecture really influences how effectively they can use AI. But a fancy data house is useless if no one knows how to live in it. That's where data culture comes in.
And the report actually paints a bit of a concerning picture here. It suggests that many universities are grappling with data silos, a lack of a single source of truth, and multiple systems that just don't talk to each other.
It's a common problem, and it can create a lot of chaos.
It sounds like it. I mean, imagine trying to make informed decisions with information scattered all over the place.
It's like a doctor trying to diagnose a patient based on medical records that are spread across different offices with no clear overview. Not very effective, right?
Not at all. The report quotes Neil Dyer, the CTO of Southeastern University, and he emphasizes the need for real-time data and getting that data into the hands of the people who actually need it. Why is it so important?
Because in a fast-paced environment like higher education, outdated data is practically useless. Decisions need to be made based on the most up-to-date information available. And Southeastern University is a great example of an institution that's really doing this well. They used real-time data to identify underserved communities and strategically establish extension sites in local churches. It's a fantastic example of data-driven decision-making that not only improves efficiency, but also expands access to education.
That's a powerful example. So we've talked about the importance of data culture, but how do we actually shift the culture within universities to make data a core part of decision-making?
Data culture is all about creating an environment where data is valued and understood by everyone, not just the IT department. It's about empowering faculty, staff, and students to use data to inform their decisions and to feel comfortable doing so.
So it's a university-wide initiative.
Exactly. It requires a multi-pronged approach, investing in data literacy training, promoting data transparency, and celebrating data-driven successes. It's about making data accessible and understandable for everyone.
The report quotes Alison Calhoun Brown from Georgia State, and she said, and this is a great quote, "The innovation is not the technology, but the change that accompanies it." That really hits the nail on the head.
It highlights a crucial point. We can have all the fanciest AI tools and data science techniques, but their true transformative power lies in how we use them. It's about changing our thinking, our processes, and our entire culture to really embrace data-driven decision-making.
So it's not just about the tools, it's about the transformation that comes with them. So far, we've been focusing on individual institutions, but the report also stresses the need for a broader ecosystem when it comes to AI in higher ed.
That's right. We need to move beyond these silos that often exist between universities, tech companies, and policymakers.
So we're talking about collaborations between universities in Silicon Valley?
Exactly. We need partnerships to share best practices, develop shared standards, and ensure AI is being used ethically and responsibly. This collaboration is crucial for navigating the complex landscape of AI in higher education. For instance, there are partnerships emerging where companies like Google are working with universities to develop AI-powered tutoring systems. It raises some really interesting questions about the future of personalized learning. Is this the direction we're heading in?
It certainly seems like a possibility, and one with some pretty significant implications. It also brings us back to you, the listener. How might these changes in higher education impact you personally, whether you're a student, an educator, or just a lifelong learner? It's something worth reflecting on.
Absolutely. The future of education is being shaped right now, and it's important for all of us to be part of that conversation. It's like we're building these incredible data infrastructures, but are we really using them to their full potential? Are we creating a culture where data is truly driving decisions?
It's like having a state-of-the-art kitchen, but only using it to make instant ramen.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the human element, the need for data literacy across the board. We can't just rely on a small group of data scientists to make sense of all this information.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we empower faculty, staff, and even students to become more data literate?
It's about providing training and resources, making data visualization tools more accessible and user-friendly, and perhaps most importantly, fostering a culture where people feel comfortable asking questions about data and using it to inform their decisions.
Data democratization, in a sense.
Precisely. It's about breaking down those barriers and making data an integral part of the decision-making process at all levels of the university.
The report highlights some interesting examples of universities that are doing this well. One that stood out to me was Southeastern University. They actually used data to identify areas where they could expand access to education. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Southeastern University is a great example of an institution that's not only collecting data, but actively using it to make a real impact on their community. They realized they had a significant number of students who were commuting long distances to attend classes.
So they used that data to figure out where they could establish new campuses or learning centers.
Exactly. They used geographic data and demographic information to pinpoint underserved communities and strategically establish extension sites in local churches.
That's brilliant. It's a win-win situation. Expanding access to education while also serving the needs of the community.
And it all started with data. They recognized the need, used data to inform their strategy, and ultimately made a tangible difference in people's lives.
It really underscores the power of data when it's used strategically and with a clear purpose. Now, while data can certainly be a force for good, the report also acknowledges the potential risks and ethical considerations surrounding AI in higher education.
Absolutely. We can't just blindly embrace these technologies without considering the potential downsides.
What are some of the key concerns that we need to be mindful of?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is data privacy. Universities collect a vast amount of sensitive information about students, and it's crucial that this data is protected and used responsibly.
Absolutely. We need to ensure that AI systems are designed with privacy in mind and that students have control over their own data.
Another concern is bias. AI algorithms are only as good as the data they're trained on, and if that data reflects existing biases, those biases can be amplified in the system,
which could lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
Exactly. For example, an AI system used for admissions decisions could perpetuate existing inequalities if it's trained on data that reflects historical biases in the admissions process.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
We need to be very careful about how these systems are designed and implemented to ensure fairness and equity.
Transparency and accountability are also essential. We need to understand how AI systems are making decisions and be able to hold them accountable for those decisions.
It's not enough to just trust the black box. We need to be able to look under the hood and understand the reasoning behind the algorithm.
Precisely. And that requires collaboration between data scientists, ethicists, and policymakers to develop guidelines and standards for the ethical use of AI in education.
So it's a multifaceted challenge that demands a holistic approach. Now, shifting gears a bit, the report also touches on the role of faculty in this AI-driven future of higher education.
It's interesting because there's often this fear that AI will replace professors altogether, but the reality is far more nuanced.
It's not about replacing humans. It's about augmenting their capabilities.
Exactly. AI can automate certain tasks, freeing up faculty time for more meaningful interactions with students,
such as personalized feedback and mentorship.
Precisely. AI can help identify students who are struggling and alert professors so they can provide targeted support.
It's like having an AI teaching assistant that can provide insights and recommendations to help professors be more effective.
And it's not just about teaching. AI can also assist with research tasks such as data analysis and literature reviews. This can accelerate the pace of discovery and lead to new breakthroughs.
It's about leveraging AI as a tool to enhance the entire academic experience for both faculty and students. The report also emphasizes the importance of lifelong learning in this rapidly evolving landscape.
Absolutely. The world of AI is constantly changing, and it's crucial that both educators and students are equipped to adapt and evolve with it.
Continuous learning is the name of the game.
Exactly. We need to embrace a mindset of curiosity and continuous improvement and be willing to experiment with new technologies and approaches.
The future of higher education is not about clinging to the old ways, but about embracing innovation and preparing students for a world that is increasingly shaped by AI.
And that's a future I'm excited to be a part of. It really is. It's about preparing students not just for their first job, but for a lifetime of learning and adaptation in a world where AI is going to play an increasingly significant role.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from dark data and data maturity to the ethical considerations surrounding AI in higher education. What are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners are walking away with today?
I think the most important message is that AI has immense potential to truly revolutionize higher education, but it requires a solid foundation. We can't just slap on some AI-powered tools and expect everything to magically transform.
It's about laying the groundwork.
Exactly. It's about investing in data culture, building robust data architectures, and fostering a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation.
And that mindset of continuous learning applies to all of us, not just those directly involved in higher education. The world of AI is evolving at an incredible pace, so staying curious and informed is absolutely essential.
Absolutely. We can't afford to be complacent. We need to be actively engaged in the conversation about AI's role in education and be prepared to adapt to the changes that are coming our way.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more crucial aspect, that the report highlights the ethical implications of AI in higher education. It's one thing to talk about the potential benefits, but we also need to be mindful of the potential risks.
Absolutely. We can't just blindly embrace these technologies without carefully considering the potential downsides.
So what are some of the ethical red flags we should be looking out for?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is potential for bias, as we touched on earlier. AI algorithms are only as good as the data they're trained on, and if that data reflects existing biases, those biases can get baked into the system.
Which could lead to unfair or even discriminatory outcomes.
Exactly. Imagine an AI system that's used to predict which students are most likely to succeed in college. If that system is trained on data that reflects historical inequalities, it could end up perpetuating those inequalities.
That's a sobering thought. We need to be very intentional about how we design and implement these systems to ensure that they're fair and equitable for all students.
And it's not just about bias. We also need to be mindful of data privacy issues. Students have a right to know how their data is being used and to have some control over how it's shared.
Transparency and accountability are crucial.
Absolutely. We need to be able to understand how AI systems are making decisions and be able to hold them accountable for those decisions.
So it's a complex landscape with both enormous potential and significant challenges.
It certainly is. But I'm optimistic that we can harness the power of AI for good in higher education as long as we proceed with caution and a commitment to ethical principles.
That's a great note to end on. So as we conclude our deep dive into AI in higher education, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question to ponder. If AI can truly personalize learning streamline operations and expand access to education, what are the potential downsides or unintended consequences we need to be aware of, and how can we mitigate those risks?
That's a crucial question and one that deserves careful consideration from all of us. And I would add that it's not just about identifying the risks, but also about engaging in open and honest conversations about how to address them.
And that's where you, our listeners, come in. We encourage you to continue exploring this topic, to stay informed, and to engage in these critical conversations about the future of education. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into AI in higher education.